All right, let's talk about a book that completely changed the game for how people build companies. We're diving into The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. It's a whole system, really, designed to tackle the one question that keeps every innovator up at night.
I mean, just look at that question. That right there, that's the ultimate nightmare, isn't it? Pouring all your time, your money, your passion into something, only to launch it and hear nothing. Just silence. Well, that exact nightmare is what the lean startup is designed to stop before it ever happens.
You see, for years and years, the old way of doing things was totally backward. The playbook was always the same. You'd get an idea, write this massive, detailed business plan, raise a bunch of cash, and then you'd vanish. You'd lock your team away for months, sometimes years, to build the perfect product in secret. The problem, the big launch, was often the very first time the idea had any contact with an actual customer. And that's just a recipe for disaster.
So Eric Ries came along and proposed this huge shift in thinking. He argued that when you're a startup, when you're dealing with massive uncertainty, your main job is not to just execute on a plan. No, your number one job is to learn, to figure out as fast as you possibly can what your customers are truly willing to use and pay for. And this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? The old way was basically a build it and they will come fantasy. It was a giant, risky leap of faith. The new way? It's scientific. It's all about taking your big ideas, breaking them down into assumptions, and then testing those assumptions before you bet the entire farm on them.
Now, what's so important about this definition is what it doesn't say. It says nothing about being in a garage, or company size, or how old the business is. The key phrase here is extreme uncertainty. And that means a tiny team inside a huge company like General Electric could be a startup. If you don't really know who your customer is or what your product should even be, guess what? You're a startup. Okay, so how do you actually find your way through all that uncertainty? Well, that's where the toolkit comes in. Reese gives us this incredibly powerful set of tools that act like an engine, and right at the heart of that engine is one simple, powerful loop that you just run over and over again. This is it. This is the absolute core of the lean startup, the build, measure, learn feedback loop. But here's the secret, the pro tip that most people miss. You have to think about it backward. Seriously, start with, what do I need to learn? What's my riskiest assumption? Then ask, how can I measure that? And only then, finally, do you ask, what's the absolute minimum I need to build to run that experiment? And that little thing you decide to build, that's your MVP, your minimum viable product. You've definitely heard this term before, right? But it's probably the most misunderstood concept in the whole book. An MVP is not just a cheap or buggy version of your product. Think of it like a science experiment. Its only job is to get you the most learning for the least amount of work. This is my all-time favorite example of an MVP. The founder of Dropbox, Drew Houston, knew that building the actual technology was going to be insanely difficult. So instead of writing a single line of code, what did he do? He made a simple video that just showed people how it was supposed to work. That video was his MVP. It cost next to nothing, but it proved without a shadow of a doubt that thousands of people had the problem he was trying to solve. Now that's a powerful experiment. So if progress isn't about how many features you've shipped, then what is it? It's validated learning. This is the real currency for a startup. It's the hard evidence you get every time you go through that build, measure, learn loop. It's the difference between saying, I think people will love this, and saying, I know people do this because I've watched them. But to get that learning, you gotta be measuring the right stuff. Reese makes this huge distinction between vanity metrics and actionable metrics. Vanity metrics, stuff like total registered users, they always go up and to the right. They make you feel good, but they don't tell you anything useful. Actionable metrics, on the other hand, they tell you the truth. They show you cause and effect. They tell you if the changes you're making are actually improving things. Okay, so all this building, all this measuring, all this learning, it's all leading up to this one massive moment, a critical fork in the road. Once you've run your experiments, you have to make one of the toughest calls a founder ever has to make. Right? The results are in. You have real evidence, real validated learning. The numbers are telling you a story. So the big question is, what are you going to do about it? Do you keep going? Do you double down on your current path? Or is it time for a change? If the data is telling you that your big idea just isn't working, you pivot. And let's be super clear. A pivot is not a failure. It's not giving up or starting over. It's a structured, strategic change of direction.
based on everything you've just learned. You keep one foot planted in what you know works, and you move the other to test a new big idea.
And these pivots can look a lot of different ways. A zoom-in pivot is a classic. That's when one little feature of your product turns out to be the thing everyone loves. Instagram is the perfect example. It started as this complicated check-in app called Bourbon, but the founders noticed that people weren't using most of it. They just loved the photo filters. So they pivoted. They threw everything else away and focused just on the photos. And, well, I think that worked out pretty well for them.
So you might be thinking, this book came out in 2011. In the tech world, that's practically ancient history. So is any of this stuff still relevant? Oh yeah, it's more relevant than ever. The problem it solves has only gotten bigger. I mean, think about where we are right now. Here in 2025, you've got AI changing entire industries overnight. Markets are shifting in the blink of an eye. Customer needs are evolving faster than ever before. In all of this chaos, having a system to navigate the uncertainty, it's not just a nice-to-have anymore. It's an absolute must for survival. So, if you only take one thing away from all of this, let it be this. Start treating your business idea like a science experiment. Your goal isn't to be right from the get-go. Your goal is to learn. Measure the things that actually matter, make your decisions based on real evidence, and for the love of everything, avoid that soul-crushing trap of building something beautiful that nobody actually wants. And that leaves us with one last question, a question for you. Think about that big idea you have, that project you're working on. What is the one single belief that everything else rests on? The one thing that, if it were proven wrong, would make the whole thing fall apart. Figure that out, because that's your starting point. Now go test it.